My name is Matthew Rathbun. Thank you guys for logging in. There's a few of you that I have seen a few times here, and thank you for coming back. Today's webinar is actually a little bit personal for me. I don't know if I shared this in other classes or not, or other sessions or not, but I have struggled my entire life with being focused on things. And I posted on Facebook the other day, and an unbelievable number of people commented or resonated with it, that every chastisement a teacher ever wrote on my report card are the things that make me successful in business today. Like, doesn't mind his own business, talks too much, can't stay focused. I mean, those type of things, all those things that they said were bad qualities are the things that are working for me. And I remember distinctly in second grade, Mrs. Penguin, her name wasn't Mrs. Penguin, but she looked like a penguin and she walked around like one. So that's what I remember her as. But she gave us a math worksheet to do. Remember the old ugly purple like printed things that they would crank out on whatever the mimeograph or whatever the machine was. And she gave that to me and I looked at it, I put my name on it. I didn't do it. I put it in my desk and she goes, "Matthew, why aren't you doing the school assignment?" I said, "It's the same thing you've given us for 2 days in a row. I got 100% in the past 2 days. What makes you think today's any different? I want something new. I need something new and different." So to be new and different, she literally picked up my desk, took it out to the hallway, and I sit there for about 2 weeks in the hallway, listening through the door as she taught and doing my schoolwork assignments. For little Matthew, that was freaking amazing. Like the custodian, Mr. Cotton, see, I remember his name because he was awesome. He made best friends with me, and we would sit in the hall and talk, and all the kids who would walk by would say hi and high five, and they knew me as a kid who sat in the hall. Loved it because I'm a little hyperactive and I haven't grown out of it. I was talking to my wife last night. I'm 46, but it's really like I'm 22 trapped in this body. So I have benefited from a lot of that attention deficit, but I have also seen a lot of penalties from it. And over the past 3 to 4 years, I have worked very hard to become more productive, more focused, and find right tools, techniques, and mentalities in order to actually get all the stuff done that I get done. So for those who don't know me with that intro, I am a broker. I oversee a company. Again, it's small for some, big for others. It's about 350 people, 9 offices, and 50 staff members. I do that. I teach. I volunteer actively volunteer for a nonprofit that does housing and a nonprofit that feeds people. And I get it all done. Sometimes I don't know how. Until I stop and look at how these things got done, but I get it all done, and I've learned to do it with far less stress than I used to have. I am a geek, so I like technology and tools, and there's going to be some of that stuff that we talk about in this session over the next 90 minutes to help you. And pretty much everything is, with the exception of one thing, I remember everything works on either PC or Apple, and on your phones as well. And Well, 11 years ago now, I was walking up the steps of our Realtor Association, preparing to teach a class with, like many of you, deals blowing up and people calling me and agents needing help. And I'm trying to figure out how I am going to help my clients and teach for 16 hours over 2 days and still breathe the next day. And I had realized for about 2 days that my chest wasn't feeling real great and that I was having problems walking up the stairs again at about 35 years old. I spent 10 years 2 years as an EMT and 8 years as a paramedic. And I knew the signs and I said, I'm too young. I can't be having a heart attack. So I drove over after the first day of class, drove to a friend's office who was a doctor. He hooked me up to the monitor and immediately called an ambulance to take me to the hospital, where I was treated for a fairly minor heart attack, but a heart attack nonetheless. I am completely convinced, as are the doctors, that it was stress-induced and hypertension and all the rest. And that set me on a path of saying, I've got to figure out life. I want to enjoy it more. I don't want to work 72 hours a day, 8 days a week. It was too much. And so I started on that path between health and nutrition and everything else, and really observing in our industry the amount of burnout that occurs amongst agents and brokers, just by the nature of what we do and how we respond to it and how we get done all the things that we need to get done. So I am summarizing in the next 90 minutes or so the things that I've learned, some of those lessons were hard lessons to learn. Some of them I've just picked up from reading the right materials, watching the right YouTubers, doing the things that I needed to do to really focus on who people were and how to get things done. Because it was also important to me, as I mentioned before some of you logged in, next week is my 28th wedding anniversary. I have 3 daughters who are now working in, or I got, my middle one is married. It's really hard for me to say that. Literally walking up the aisle, I have her in my arm and I'm like, honey, it's not too late. It's okay. You can back out right now. It's fine. It's only your first wedding. I'll pay for a second. And she did it anyways. So I let me fix something right here. Sorry. I am all about making sure my family was taken care of, then my clients, then my other activities. And I realized that when I was prioritizing these things, I needed a better system or approach to ensure that I was doing those things I needed to do. So again, the next 90 minutes will be what I have learned and developed over time that is working for me. And I hope that it will help you have healthier and better careers as well. The reality is, this is entering my 19th year in this business. And just from 5 years ago and 10 years before that, the world has become way more demanding for what we do. The need to be the chief marketing officer and chief financial officer and chief executive officer, or our team or us as an agent, has become more demanding. Whether it's just the natural progression of life or the industry changes, it's harder. And we find that we're busier than ever before with less payoff. So that brings me to one of my favorite quotes about productivity is from Thomas Edison. Being busy does not always mean real work. The object of all work is production or accomplishment. And to either of these ends, there must be forethought, system, planning, intelligence, and honest purpose, as well as perspiration. Seeming to do is not doing. We have, as an industry, learned to work from one transaction to another, right? You find the client, you get them under contract, you work the contract, you get them to closing, you put them, hopefully, in a CRM so you can work with them again in 3 to 4 years when they go to buy or sell again. But that's not being productive. Having a good financial year isn't being productive. Being able to establish the things that you need to do in systems and tools and feeling accomplished is different than just feeling productive. Our industry loves giving out awards and trophies. How many of you noticed all the HomeSnap awards over the past 2 days? Like, I created a meme. I didn't post it because some of my own agents were posting these things. I didn't want to get mad at me. And it just says, hi, I'm Matthew. I'm in the top 100% of all agents nationwide. Because apparently we're just giving out awards and trophies for anything, no matter what you do. And it's not your production. That's a horrible word to call it, because we're not productive when we're just barely getting to the end of each closing without killing a client, by salvaging our marriage, by not, stuffing our kids in the closet so I can take a phone call. There's better ways. And so we want to work today on what we can do, what tools we can put in place to do these things better, more efficiently, and with less stress. Now, there are some concepts that have to go hand in hand, and some precepts that have to go hand in hand with the tools and techniques. And I find that a lot of instructors, when they teach them this, a lot of books that I read about this, they focus on either only concepts or only tools. So I'm going to give you, again, a summation of what I've been learning and using that has worked really well for me. And it's a lot of hit and miss with some of these things. I've also been coaching a group of my own agents over the past 2 years, especially our large team leaders, to do these exact things. And they have spoken at countless office meetings and other things, attributing their growth and success to putting these first things in place. This is business planning season. How many of you are now collecting data for next year to make your micro adjustments for your business, right? You're looking at your budgets, you're looking at what next year's consumers are going to be, what production goals need to be set. And we find that we put a lot of goals out there. So I want to increase my business by 15% next year, right? Everybody does that type of thing. But everybody has the goal to win. Everybody has the goal to do better. There's never been an NFL football game where both teams then enter the field going, we think we want to win, except for the Super Bowl when they're playing the Patriots, because I am quite sure the other team's paid off every time, but whatever. No, a couple Patriot fans here, I see. The reality is we all go in to win. Everybody who got into real estate had wanted to reach a goal, but we don't focus on what it takes to get from setting the goal to reaching a goal and the little atomic or little micro changes and habits we need to build. So let's talk about some concepts. First, your brain is for having ideas. It is not for holding them. How many of you have recently walked in a room and went, I don't know why I'm here? You had purpose. You know you had purpose, but you don't remember what the purpose is. Anybody else? How many of you have had a great idea driving down the road and there was nothing you can do about it and you get home going, I wish I could remember all that idea? Right? We do that all the time because our brains are designed for formulating, thinking, being creative. Even if you are not necessarily a creative person, your brain is still creating and working and coming up with ideas or recognizing other ideas you wish to improve on. But our memories are not built to hold the details of what we just saw or heard. At the end of this session, and by the way, now that I've got enough people here, I'm going to share in the chat a textbook for this class that gives you all the notes, all the slides are in there and all the little links and everything. So you can go download that from the chat section right now. Because no matter how many little notes you make, you may forget something. Your brain isn't built for retaining this information. This is why note taking is so important. My wife, we have been, 2 to 3 times a week for the 28 years we've been married, and in decades before that, well, not decades, we were 18, so a decade before that. My wife has taken notes on every sermon she's ever heard. Every one of them. She has little notebooks full of it. She has all these things. And I'm like, honey, the book is 2,200 years old and nothing's really changed. Honestly, what are you taking notes about? She's like, I got these ideas every time, or it helps me remember these things and all this other stuff. And that's great. And her college classes, I'm watching her, like she opens a book. She's like, I think you should read this book. You'd really love this book. I can't write in a book. It is sacrilege to me. Like people who highlight in books and write in books, oh my God, dude, what is wrong with you? Like this was not a coloring book. I don't understand. My wife, the whole flipping book is highlighted. And I'm like, how do you know what's important if you highlight the entire book? She goes, the whole book was important. Our brain was not designed to retain all that highlighted material. Our brain was to formulate ideas, construct thoughts and feelings and emotion and connection with it. If we want to remember things, we have to use other tools. Multitasking is a myth. Multitasking is simply task switching. Matter of fact, it reduces your productivity by 40%. So if you are trying to formulate an email while talking to a client who's done it, one of the two is suffering. If you don't believe me, call a friend or family member while they're shopping in the store. You can tell they're shopping, right? You feel like they're disengaged. You've been chatting for a while and they're like, yep. And they're like picking up clothes and looking at it. They're calculating whether this is affordable or whether it's something they want. And there's been so many studies done about this. When you are driving and talking, even hands-free, you are only focusing on driving 30%, 36% of your attention. Talking on the phone and driving is 36% attention. You have a higher probability of successfully navigating a drive home by drinking and driving than you are talking and engaging in a conversation and driving. That's how dangerous. That's how our brain doesn't multitask. That's how dangerous this is. And so George calls me up and goes, "Hey Matthew, we have a problem with this transaction. I'm driving my truck around and I'm listening to his problem. And the whole time I'm like, okay, I know what the problem is, but I can't take notes about it. I can't write it down. I can't formulate thoughts. So what is my response? Hey George, can you just reduce that to an email and send it off to me? And now what I've done is I've doubled my time because I was driving and taking a call. I had to listen to the problem. Now George has to not only have told me the problem, he has to email me the problem, then I read the problem, and then I calculate, formulate a response, and then I do that thing. All I've done is doubled my work to solve or even understand that problem. Does everybody follow? What if I just don't take the phone call? What if I just make them leave a message? What do people do when you don't pick up? They very rarely leave a message. They are far more likely to text you or email you when you didn't pick up the phone. Does everybody follow? Multitasking we know doesn't work. And agents try to do it all the time. Your mornings have to matter. How you start the day is how it sets the tone for the rest of your day. I am not a big fan of working out. You there with me? Like, dude, I hate working out so hard. But then I get involved in it. I started and I'm doing great. But I got this mental block. Every morning I do it. And every morning I wake up, I throw the covers off, I grumble all the way to the rowing machine or the Bowflex or the stair stepper or the Apple Fitness video where those people are so excited to be there and they're trying to get me hyped up to exercise. And I'm just like, you know what? Screw you. This is not fun. And then I work out for an hour and I'm like, man, I do feel so much better. This has been my pattern. For 3 decades, I've been working out. That has been the pattern every time. It sets the tone for my day. And when I miss it, when I don't work out, something's amiss, right? It has a different effect. So I had to change my mornings. This was the first and the biggest step of correcting that overwhelmed feeling for me. First, I stopped checking social media. Matter of fact, I used to get in the habit, like I would roll over at 2 a.m. because I couldn't sleep. And the first thing I would do is open up the phone and I would look to see what text messages or emails my clients sent or the other agent sent in the middle of the night. And then when there was nothing there or nothing I could respond to, I would then go switch to go, what's going on Facebook? What's going on Instagram? What's going on, whatever the things are. So about 2 years ago, when I stopped making that phone be the first object in my hand in the morning, I realized the world kept going and everything was fine. My clients didn't need me to respond at 6 o'clock to their email that they sent at 11 o'clock because they're still sleeping. It was okay to do it during normal business hours. I didn't need to know what somebody posted on social media because especially in the past 3 years or so, I would say 75% of what's put on social media is designed to trigger you and tick you off. Why are you subjecting yourself to that? At least first thing in the morning. We can get to being ticked off later on in the day. A healthy breakfast was important. Now, let me just say a healthy breakfast is relative because guys, Matthew likes him some Spam. I love it. Like I went on keto 18 months ago and I was really kicking and screaming. And my wife's like, here's the food you can eat. And bacon and Spam were on it. What more do you need? Right there with it. But that fried egg or that scrambled egg rather, to the roasted tomato, it takes about 5 minutes. All these things that we say we don't have time for, or we're running by McDonald's to get junk food. Good, healthy breakfast to start the day. Even if you say you're not a breakfast eater, something small, a cup of yogurt, something, it changes your behavior. Positive comments at positive days. Again, I had to get off of the news app and I had to get off of social media until later in the day so that I could have that moment. Now, I am not the person who stands in the mirror and says, you're amazing. Everybody loves you. I am not that person. Now, some of you do that and you are amazing and people absolutely adore you. But it was awkward for me to do those self-affirmations. What I did instead is say, sometimes it feels like the world's falling apart, but if I focus here, if I see the work that's being done in Haiti, my wife and I are very involved in a couple different projects that we support. One for me, I've been to Haiti. I went for 6 years in a row for missions trip. It's got a special place in my heart. And to see people go and work there offsets the disasters that are happening. Yes, they're there, but also look how people come together from multiple nations to help them out. Changing that focus to be more positive in the morning was a conscious effort because quite frankly, I can go negative quick, but it changed my focus. When I see posts on social media, it's very likely that I'm going to get wrapped up in my feelings about the politics of it or the health causes of it or whatever it is. And then I go, if I scroll 2 more posts, someone said something positive and that's what I need to focus on. Those focusing on positive comments, making sure you're focused on going, you know what, man, today it's stressful, but at least I have a job. Man, this is so much work with these clients, but at least I have clients. It is the micro moment where you start taking those problems and going, but at least I have this. It changes your morning mindset. And let me just say this. This has nothing to do with productivity, but this has been something that's passionate for me. Going to social media and complaining about the job you do benefits nobody. Nobody. How many agents do you see complaining about their job, complaining about other agents, complaining about their clients, talking about how real estate is so stressful and challenging? Your clients who are following, your tribe who's following your social media is going, man, they really hate their clients. I don't want to be something they hate. Or they really seem to be stressed out about work. I should probably go talk to another agent. It just sets negative tones. For me, it was always positive. Like if I'm going to start off on a post in the morning, it's going to be positive. If I'm talking to myself, it's going to be positive. Everything gets reset to neutral night before. I know this sounds super OCD, but I've been like this since I was a little kid. Because my mind goes and is fractionalized all the time, everything physically in my space had to be in its exact place all the time. And so I became very conscientious about before I go to bed, the coffee machine is set and ready for the next morning. Everything is straight and organized on my desk, is literally all squared up. And it's so that when I come into my office, my home office every morning, I can breathe. I don't feel like the first thing I have to do is adjust or clean or manage the physical space. And the night before, my day is planned. And we're going to talk more about time blocking and planning in just a bit. Now that I got my morning set, the next philosophy that I adopted early on was called Getting Things Done, or GTD. This is from a book called Getting Things Done. I got 2 book recommendations I'll show you at the end. The first part of this was I had to capture whatever my tasks were. So like I said, usually the night before, I know what is my highlight. Now, one of the books I don't have in the slides because I've just read it recently and I need to read it again. It's called Make Time. Make Time is a really, really good book. It's a super easy read. It's from 2 engineers who worked at Google on a bunch of notable projects you've heard of. And one of the things I adopted from the Make Time book is a concept of a highlight. So today's highlight for me is I have to get my dog vet appointment. Now, I've got lots of things to do today. I've got emails to respond to. I have contract addendums to write. I have a listing that needs to go into MLS. But my highlight, the important thing that I want to get done, is making the vet appointment, because it's not just a vet appointment. He's got to get his rabies shots today so that I can get him to the groomer on Saturday, because they won't take him without updated. He's got to be 30 days to the good. In other words, he's got to be 30 days buffer from his expiration. And so there's a bigger plan here that I need to get done, because he's a 112-pound golden retriever with lots of hair. He needs to be groomed. So that's my highlight today, right? Now, when I have my highlight set, there are other tasks that need to be completed. And whether you write them down on a little piece of paper or whether you're like me and use a digital application, it's going to dictate your day so you know how you feel accomplished and what's actually important. Because here's what happens. And I've seen you guys. Some of you are going to feel a little, I don't know, guilty about this. But I've seen agents walk into the office at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning and look all disheveled and frazzled and going, man, I've got to get that CMA done. I got a listing appointment tonight. Whew, I got so much to do. And then they promptly go to their friend, one cubicle or one office over, and sit and gossip about everybody for an hour and a half, and then walk out and go, okay, I already got to get the CMA done. And then there's a lunch appointment, and then there's a transaction issue, and then there's a short sale that you didn't know was a short sale until after the settlement company did the numbers. And now at 6 o'clock, you're doing a CMA for a 7:30 listing appointment, and it's crap work when you walk in the door, right? And you're frazzled. Because when I write down, when I capture all that I need to do and go through a getting things done process, it reminds me I don't have time to go listen to other people's marital problems or transaction problems or who's leaving what company. And, oh my God, did you hear about my client the other day? Those things become far less important when you have clarified what your plan is for the day. So the getting things done technique is, first you capture all the stuff you do. You collect all the things that must be done today. There's a highlight, that's the most important thing that has to be done, and then everything else gets collected. I take the list of things I have to get done, and then I clarify what processes need to be done. So if I'm going to do a market analysis, I know I have to pull comps, I have to do a little bit of math, I have to put it together with the CMA, all those things to be done. That's the process. And then I organize what things I need to get done in what order and how long and budget the time it'll take. I reflect on the plan I've made for the day, and then I just go execute and do the plan, and nothing else can matter unless it becomes an unscripted priority. Again, your client calling saying my house caught on fire, unscripted priority. Getting things done, focusing on that GTD method of the things you have to do, brings clarity to what you have to do to make sure everything else is secondary or even tertiary. So when somebody pops in your office with their cup of coffee and going, did you hear about Rose the other day? You're like, I don't care about Rose because that's not on my list. Gossip isn't on my getting things done list. Part of the GTD method that has worked well for me is if it takes less than 2 minutes, I don't even put it in the process of GTD. I just get it done. If I need to forward an addendum to somebody, I don't need to write that down. It takes longer to write it down and prioritize it than just send that thing out. So literally, if it's just forwarding an email, forward the email. Don't put it on the list, just do it. Anything less than 2 minutes, you just do. Everything else gets prioritized in a plan. The next step is mise en place. So if you're a cook, you've heard this phrase before. The first time I heard it, I love cooking, by the way. Not a chef, but I do love cooking for me, because no one else needs to eat some of the stuff I experiment on. But chefs have this, especially in busy kitchens, they've adopted this mise en place mentality, which is to say everything goes back in the exact same place. Because if I am cooking meals, if I'm preparing dishes, I don't want to have to look for things because they have been misplaced. How many of you have teenagers who put dishes away, or kids who put dishes away? And they're like, you have a favorite coffee cup and it's in a different darn place every single time you go to get it? Imagine, if you would, that everything is exactly where you need it. Now, some of you, you're still using paper for your transactions. And you're like, you've got stacks of books and notes, that GRI class you took in 1999, still on your desk in your office, because one day you're going to crank it open and reflect on that business planning session that you've never gotten to. You know who you are. You got stacks of stuff in your office. You think you know where it is. Here's the reality. In general, it takes 32% more time to find something that isn't organized. Stacks of stuff, you know what, it's in this pile here somewhere, and you're flipping through it and you're looking through pages. Imagine if I could just go into an app and it says, oh, here's the addendum. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those tools. You probably have something in your company, Dotloop or DocuSign Transaction Room or SkySlope, or one of those probably exists for you, and you may or may not be using it. It saves 32% of your time because you can just open an app and there's your form, and you don't have to go flicking through papers or shuffling stuff around or moving things around. Digitally and physically, everything needs to go back in the exact same place every single time. It saves you so much time, and it also saves your brain power from looking for things and getting frustrated you can't find it, to actually focusing on real problem solving. Outside of the morning practices and getting things done, there are 7 other life practices that I've embraced that I think are powerful for real estate agents. One is a disciplined life. I chastise myself when I don't have discipline, when things aren't scheduled, when things, I become very, very intentional about my workday being scripted and then the rest of my life being frivolous, because I enjoy, my brother just called me up and said, let's go fishing this afternoon. And I've now, because I've been so structured in my business life, I can just go pick up the box and the pole and we can run out to the river and go fishing, right? I like having that time. The discipline I have for my work life has given me a freedom for my personal life that I never knew for about 15 years of real estate practice. Paperless absolutely brought freedom to me. We took our company there about 7 years ago. When COVID hit, our company within 6 hours made the decision to work from home for 6 months until we figured out what was going on. Staff, agents, everybody. We didn't miss a beat because everything was in the cloud and digital and paperless. When you're a broker and an agent calls you with a problem, being able to pull up an app and be able to look at their transaction without saying, can you email that to me? Or what does it say? Can you read it to me again? I didn't quite get that. Saves me so much time. Having a focused effort. And we're going to talk about some tools to do this in just a minute. I'm right now writing a textbook for NAR. I'm writing a new designation, 8-hour designation. And I love writing, but I hate the time it takes to write. Like, it's all in my brain. I just wish there was some way to push a button and go, it was just done, but I can't. And so I need focused effort. And so I schedule time to do it. And then I shut everything down. And we'll talk about that in a minute, because I am easily distracted by things. Every little red dot means something. How many of you have little red dots right now? How many of you have Gmail and it says 13,277 emails in your inbox? Okay, guys, that stuff is heart attack inducing, and I'm not even kidding. Those little red dots cannot run your life. You've got to stop. You sit down with your family and you look at your Apple Watch or you look at your phone and there's a red dot in the text message block. What do? Your mind is now shifted to, I wonder who that is. You know what? It's just easier to look. Let me just go see if it's okay. And then you go look and you interrupt the conversation you're having with a loved one or a family member, or God forsake, another client, to look at that little red dot or the vibration on your watch. And it's something nonsensical. And now you have broken the conversation, you have broken the connection with the other people who are important, because we're chasing the little red dots. You're driving your car and Siri says, you have a text message from so-and-so. And now you're worried about that text messages. Like this is because, and this impacts all of us. None of us are exempt from this. Chasing little red dots will drive you crazy. It is by design. And when you don't respond to little red dots, when you don't go look at LinkedIn, it sends you notifications to prompt you to, because these computer programmers and designers for our little phones and our emails and our computers and all this, they've got a science about how to get your attention broken to just sway you from what you're doing to get you to go somewhere else. Those little red dots are killing you. And you've got to, we're going to talk in a minute about some techniques to get rid of them, but they've got to mean something again. They can't just be a distraction. You need to demand more of others. We're in a service industry. It is very practical. It's very common for us to say, we're here to serve. We're going to bend over backwards. We're going to stop. No, like an agent yesterday that I've been coaching for a while, who's just absolutely, the average sales price in our market's about $314 right now. She went from $2 million in production to $27 million production in 9 months. Can you imagine? Like, she's just exploded overnight. And it was all because she quit her other dual career job. It was amazing what happened to her, because we knew she'd be awesome. But she is killing herself trying to serve everybody else. Like every agent I've seen become a mega producer at the sacrifice of their family, because they don't want to demand things of other people. And let me give you an example. I do not refer home inspectors who don't take credit card payments on site. How many of you have home inspectors who are like, I need a check? Like, I haven't had a checkbook in my house in 11 years, not a one. If it's something that's required by check, I got to go to the bank and get a counter check, because we just don't use checkbooks. Or they forgot their checkbook or something else. We refer well and septic companies if I can't place the order on their webpage for the inspection on my time, because I don't want to go sit on the phone on hold in their time while their daughter, I don't know what it is about well and septic companies. It's always like their daughter or sister or daughter-in-law who works there as the front counter person. I don't know, maybe it's just our area. My settlement company, if I have to fax anything, we sure as hell aren't referring them, but the settlement company, I need to be able to email them stuff, and they need to be able to keep track of it in our online portal. If they won't do that, I won't refer them. It doesn't mean I'm going to reject a client who wants to use them, but it's not going to be on my referral list. I need to demand more of the affiliates that I am referring to be more respectful of my time, to use the tools and resources out there, to not be practicing like it's 1999. I need to demand more of them. And that means using the right partners. That means having the right assistant and using them, the right transaction coordinator, and saying, you know what? I need to give up some control. How many of you are control freaks? Like, you want to process your own paperwork. You don't want a transaction coordinator doing it. You have a way of doing this. You won't hire an assistant, because even though you can afford it, because I've got a system there, you've got to find the right partners to help you out, whether it's virtual assistants, transaction coordinators, in-person assistants, whatever it is. You've got a budget to let somebody do some of that work for you. The career and jobs that we have will be more fulfilling if I'm setting out some of the tasks I can do to somebody else. When the second I can afford it, I need to. And I fought this for years. I've only recently hired a personal assistant. The owner of my firm, my boss, and I oversee our entire operations, has told me for probably a decade to hire somebody, because I'm working in the middle of the night doing a form creation or administrative tasks, because I don't trust people, because I've tried it, it didn't work. I finally hired the right person. Guys, it is absolutely changed everything about how I do business. I'm not sitting in front of the computer processing CE credits for the state anymore until 2 a.m. I have somebody who can do that during the day. The amount of time that person has freed up because of what my time's worth versus what we're paying her is substantial. And it's given me another next step in the evolution of being able to control my time. So use the right partners, and then be realistic about your expectations. If you right now are doing 8 million in production, 10 million in production, and you're like, I'm stressed out all the time, I don't sleep, I got so many of these deals going on, I need to breathe, then don't look at next year and go, my goal is 15 million in production. You haven't figured out 8 million or 6 million. Some people, it's about 3 million before they get stressed out. You need to know what your limits are and set reasonable expectations on yourself and what can be done for clients. I have a client right now, a seller, who wants to put their house on the market, but wants a rent back until January. because of the new construction. Anybody got those type of sellers? Like, I want to take advantage of the market now. I don't want any more days to go by. And you're sitting there going, that for most lenders, they won't let you do a 60-day rent back anyways. So it's not practical. And so I'm just going to say no to that client. They may go find another agent who's going to accept them and do what they want. But that agent's got to deal with the constant calls of like, how there are no buyers here? Why is nobody looking at my house? How come all the offers that come in are rejecting my, 6-month rent back request? I need to be able to focus on practical clients, reasonable goals, and reasonable expectations of myself. We set demands on ourselves way too high. And we have to learn to delegate where we can, whether it's a personal or virtual assistant or just our partners. Now, when we talk about managing time, we're going to start with this, and that is owning your calendar. Now, I use Gmail as my calendar of choice. There's lots of calendar apps. I love my Apple stuff. I am an Apple freak, but Google Calendar gives me a few more options and also some tie-ins into more practical things. The first step in that is time blocking. So again, this is going to tie all those other practical things that we talked about before. This is going to be very disciplined, and it's going to freak somebody out, but let me tell you, it works, and it's not as rigid as it looks. So time blocking is taking my day and saying, each section of day is now tasked with a certain thing. So let's say that my kids aren't little anymore. As I told you, they're all adults now, mostly. I don't know, sometimes I think like the deeper in their 20s they get, the less I prepared them for life, although we tried real hard. But anyways, my daughter last night called me. She's babysitting her my in-laws' house, and the power went out. She goes, "Dad, what do I do?" I'm like, I have no idea. What do you think you need to do when the power goes out? And she goes, "Well, how do I charge my phone with the power being out?" Like, dude, we have failed you so hard. And then she goes, "But Dad, we have all house generator in our house. I've never been in a home where the power went out." So things come up, right? I got to stop what I'm doing. I've got to get my little, 19-year-old, her mindset on the right things, make her feel safe and what she needs to do and those type of things. That is unscripted time. That's an unscripted interruption I need to address. But when they were little and they had dance recital and martial arts demos and doctor's appointments, and when my wife had, graduation from this program or that program, or she had an event or a task she needed, that went on my calendar. And if Tracy called me and said, "Matthew, I'd like to go look at houses on Wednesday night," and I look at my calendar and my daughter's recital is there, my answer to Tracy is, "I'm sorry, I have an appointment." Tracy doesn't need to know that it's my kid's recital or everything. Now, in the world of social media, if she's following me on Facebook, she's going to see the pictures and stuff, but that doesn't matter. My family was an appointment. And how many of you moved, don't answer this, but how many of you have moved or been late for a family event because of a buyer who just had to see this home and then they didn't write on it? Or a seller who just had to meet with you. The listing appointment has to be on Wednesday because we want to make a decision on Thursday. And a month later, they're calling you back and going, "I think we're ready to sell." And what was the cost of neglecting your family? Now, if you had a Wednesday appointment and it was a relocating client, a buyer who was in town, and that buyer set an appointment, you go look at property, a second buyer said, "Can we look at property?" You would say no because you had an appointment with the first buyer, correct? You wouldn't move a buyer out of that time slot. So why is it okay to move your family out of the way or to not attend those important things in their life? And let me just say, for those of you who have little kids, it goes by far too quickly. It's worth the 18 years you have to invest in them because it goes by quickly, and you're still working after they're out of the house, and you can have more time to go do those other things. It's okay to say no to clients, but time blocking is important. Those appointments have to be set in advance and they treat it like an important thing. So this is an example of what my week looks like. Now, you'll notice, and for some of you, you're on your iPhones, it may be too small, but I've got workout in the morning from 7 to 8. I've got meditation in alternating days. I've got, in this case, on Saturday, I had fishing scheduled in the morning. And then I have noticed that the workout comes first, and then I sit down at 8 o'clock and I set my day. So the discipline I talked about earlier, the getting things done discipline, is when I spend about 15 minutes in that morning when I'm saying, here's my highlight for today, here are the other tasks I have to do, here's the plan I have to execute them, and then I go execute. And then I have on Monday, at 9 o'clock, I have respond to the weekend calls and emails. So I have in my email inbox a subfolder called Monday. And anything that comes in Friday night, Saturday, Sunday that isn't urgent, I just move out of the inbox into the Monday box. And then Monday morning is when I respond to all those things over the weekend that weren't urgent or didn't need to be responded to right then. If it is urgent, of course, we're going to respond to it. You're going to find that a great deal of what you do isn't as urgent in reality as you think it is in your mind. And so I created a box to get it out of my inbox because that inbox overload is real. And so I spend 2 hours every Monday responding to agent messages and client messages and all the stuff that didn't need to be done over the weekend. And then I've got time from 11 to 12 for my handwritten notes. And then at 1 o'clock, I have, of course, I have some meal time there. And then at 1 o'clock, I have what's called task batching. Task batching is all the little mini things that only took 5-10 minutes to do, or maybe 15 minutes to do, that I can lump together for that unscripted time to go just catch up on those little minor things. Now, you'll see that I've got open meeting slots. So if somebody calls me on that, and for those who are brokers, the gotta minutes will kill you. If it is not, and every agent thinks everything's urgent. Right. And it's just, I want to run this by you like they know the answer. When you start asking them, what does your contract say? And what would you do if I wasn't here? They start getting in the habit of saying, I know what you're going to say. Here's my solution. Let's get to it. For my staff, for those of you who are brokers, different for agents and staff, but for my staff, when they stop by the door and say, do you have a minute? I say, I really don't. But tomorrow at 1 o'clock, I have an opening. So I have scheduled in open meetings times to have them more disciplined. How many of you get emails from people and are like, hey, just start at the bottom and read up and let me know what you think? I don't. I respond back. I need a 1-paragraph summary of what the problem is. Reading emails from reverse order doesn't fill in the blanks of the stuff I don't know. It's not a good use of my time. Give me a summary. So my staff, they hate me for it. I will be honest. This is the one thing. Like, I ask my staff to review me every year, and it's like all great responses except that I make them summarize every problem in a written way so I can solve it, because I've spent too much time hunting down answers. It wastes too much time. For my clients, that's the same thing for open meetings. When my client says, hey, do you have a minute to talk? You know what? I'm booked right now. I'm with somebody right now, or I have an appointment right now. But this afternoon at 1 o'clock, I have an appointment or opportunity, or 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. Guys, they don't expect you to, some of your clients will expect you to be available 24/7, but not all of them. So all of this is there. And then you can notice in red is my personal time at night, where I have study time for school, or I have focus work. This is my creative time for focusing on creating videos for my brand, or writing blog posts, or updating my market analysis for future clients, whatever, my templates. And then I've got even time built in there where I focus on my nonprofit volunteer work every week, so that I have less stress. I know this seems like a lot. And you're like, oh my God, every minute's booked. It really isn't. A lot of that time is booked for this later, these tasks to be done later. Because a lot of you go to classes and you're like, man, that's a really good idea. I wish I could go do X. And it never gets done because you haven't put time into place to work on those things. And if you don't have something, if I am caught up on my schoolwork, guess what? It's just free time. It's very refreshing to delete a scheduled event because you don't need it because you were ahead of the curve. So this time blocking looks overwhelming, but it is part of the discipline of life. It has substantially changed not only my life, but a lot of other people. This is one of the most common practices you hear from production gurus. The next thing is just focus time. This is whether you are a ADD person or not. One of the best techniques that I've ever heard of, and again, this is another very popular one from productivity experts, is using the Pomodoro timer. The Pomodoro is Italian for tomato timer, I think, which is the person who came up with this idea in the first place. It is a practice of focusing for 25 minutes on something. So let's say I'm writing a new listing description for a listing. How many, maybe am I the only one here that's ever kind of just written a crappy description because you just had to get it done to get an MLS? Like, you didn't put thought into it. You're just like motivated seller, bring all offers. And like, I'll get to that later. I'll put a new one in there and describe it. Because we didn't set the time to focus. So the Pomodoro task, pomofocus.io, it has an online tool and has free apps. Is the practice of saying 25 minutes of just focus work. You will feel more productive because you focused on something for 25 minutes. It's very mentally satisfying. And then I need 5 minutes away. for me, I go walk my dog. I take a walk around the backyard of my house. I will take a break to go get a cheese snack or something, cut up some celery, whatever it is. And 5 minutes is longer than you think it is. And then I'm going to go take 5-minute break. And then I'm coming back and I'm doing another 25 minutes of focus work, generally on the same project. Every fourth cycle, I take 30 minutes and I have to walk off. Now, if you're an Apple user, your Apple Watch has a breathe cycle or stand reminder to let you know you've been sitting too long or working too long. But I use the PromoFocus IO religiously, because for me, I feel very accomplished when I can say, I spent 25 minutes of solid focused work. This is the best work I could do because nothing else was interrupting me. Now, this is somewhat new. And this will be probably the only thing I have that is only for iOS, but it is so powerful, I didn't want to leave it out. Apple Focus, on Monday, Apple released iOS 15, which is for your iPad and your iPhone. And one of the things that they released on it is Apple Focus. Now, Focus, I'm running a beta for those who are true geeks. I'm running the beta for the Monterey, the new operating system, on my MacBook, and it works on there too, but that's not going to be released for another month or two, unless you're risky and you want to go do the beta version. So this works primarily on your phone and iPad, but it'll affect your computer. And what it does is it lets me set up and customize. Actually, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what it looks like. Let me open it up first. All right, so on my MacBook, I'm hitting in the control center. Now, again, this is on your iPhone and your iPad. I'm going to go over here, and you can see right here, this little block says I'm teaching. Now, I can set up all the different preferences I want, and so I'm going to customize these. Let me zoom in here for a minute so you can see this. Okay, so this lets me go and customize this. And so I have teaching time. Notice that there's no names here or anything else. Teaching time means everything shut down. There are no text message alerts. There are no email alerts. There are no phone calls allowed. There are no text messages allowed. Nothing interrupts this time. And I have content creation. When I'm writing a student manual, when I'm creating these presentations, I'm doing whatever, I hit content creation on all my devices, my iPhone, my iPad, my watch, my laptop. I click one button, it shuts everything down, except my wife, my brother, and my 3 daughters are the only ones who text messages and phone calls can come through. That's the only ones who can permeate that wall. I can add people. I can also add apps. I can, for example, the Be Focused Pro, which is my Pomodoro timer on my Mac, that works. That sends alerts because that's how I time myself for the content writing. I can trigger this and say, I want it based on these times. So Sunday mornings for church time, every Sunday morning, everything's already shut down between the 2 hours that we're attending church. Now, my wife and I have chosen to attend church by live stream during the pandemic. We go to a 5,000 person church. A lot of people who don't believe in vaccine the masks, and we're not going to die because of it. So we've been watching it at home, but we're very conscientious of that time. So there's nothing permeates that time. Nothing alerts, buzzes. I can also do it location based, or I can do it on app based. So when I open Word, for example, it may shut down everything because I've got that app open because that's my writing app for creating content. So these little tools here help shut down the rest of the world, and I can customize each one as I want to. That is, to me, it is a very, very powerful tool for productivity experts everywhere. And again, it's coming soon to the MacBook users. Sorry, PC and Android users, I don't know what to tell you other than visit your Apple store. All right, so the next tool I use is Calendly. How much time do you spend booking appointments with home inspectors and your clients and people who want to get on your calendar? Calendly is a very inexpensive tool. Matter of fact, there's a free version of it for most of what we're doing. And when a client says, hey, I want to meet with you, instead of me going, okay, what date and time works with you? Well, let me go ask my wife. Well, okay, what time of day? Let me go ask my partner. Let me go find out if we can get a babysitter. Like, all this work goes into 15 emails back and forth to schedule something, as opposed to saying, because I'm using time blocking, I can just give them a link. They don't see what's on my calendar. They see what schedules are available. For those of you who are brokers, it's coaching season. And so I coach our top producers and our big teams. And so I send all of them one link, and I have set up on my calendar specific dates for 90-minute sessions. They just go and click on it. And the second they have booked that date, I can choose whether it's a Zoom meeting or an in-person meeting and what location. And I add that prior to, so the second they choose a time, they immediately get an email that says, okay, your Zoom link is this, we're meeting on this date and time. They get a response email for that. Then a day before, both that person who I'm meeting with and myself get an email with a reminder of the location and or Zoom link, the time and date, and then 15 minutes beforehand. I now no longer am responsible for reminding people of meetings. I'm no longer responsible for setting up Zoom things. All of this is automated for them, and they got to pick the time that was available on my calendar. If you're doing this for one person or a group where they're doing one individual time, Calendly works great. If you're doing this for groups, let's say I need to get the home inspector, both the buyers and myself and the listing agent all have to agree, or the seller, all have to agree on the time that the home inspection is going to take place. Instead of emailing 1,000 people individually, I go to Doodle and I go, because let's say a home inspection on average takes 4 hours. So I have these 4-hour blocks in the next week set up. And now I can send out the Doodle link to the buyers, the listing agent, who's going to check with the sellers, and the home inspector, and they all vote on what time works for them. And then whichever slot gets the most votes are the ones I push a button, and then everybody gets their reminders and it gets put on their calendars and all the rest. Doodle there's a free version, and then there's a very inexpensive pro version. If you use it a lot and religiously, you're probably going to want to pay a couple bucks to get the full version, but the free version will work for a lot of you. It is saved so much time with trying to schedule everybody where they need to be. And if you have those buyers who they want to be there for the well and septic tests, and they want to be there for the water test, and they want to be there for everything, using Doodle to manage their schedule, your schedule, and the other person, so they can vote on the time that the group meeting is going to occur. Again, saves you a lot of time. It sends out reminders of it on your behalf. So you seem like you're very on top of things, but it's working for you. The next tool for time management I recommend is Toggle. Now, Toggle is not a long-term tool. You need to use it for about 30 to 60 days. What Toggle does is it keeps track of what you're doing with your time. You can manually report it, and or it can monitor what you're doing on your iPhone or the Android phone or phone and your desktop. So in other words, if I am in my email client, it's going to record that I was answering emails for however many hours. Here's what I found out when I started using this. I used it for 60 days, about 2 years ago. And then again, I used it about 4 or 5 months ago for 30 days. When I first used it, I honestly was unnerved at how much time I was spending answering emails every day. 38% of my day was answering emails. Does that sound like a productive use of your day? It isn't. And so that triggered me to go, I've got to manage my emails better. I got to figure out a whole different system, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that works. And so I studied and found all these experts and summarized what worked for them. It told me how much time I was spending that was unscripted time. And that unscripted time, when I looked back at the day and went, yeah, that was just talking about politics with somebody in the office. And what felt like a 15-minute conversation was actually 45 minutes, 15 minutes of work, an hour and a half for lunch, back to the office, another unscripted meeting that stopped in. It was so much wasted time, and it held me accountable personally. No one saw this unless you wanted to. Like I decided to share the results with my wife just because I needed an accountability partner. Like, hey, I've been working from home for a while, and she's here most of the time. If you hear me on the phone with something that isn't productive, call me out on it, because I was spending too much time talking about association politics. If any of you are on your boards, we waste too much time talking about what other people care about who are never going to ever be fans. And it changed my mindset. I know this is not if you're not a fan of your association, I'm so sorry. You've missed it. There's value there, I promise you. But I started going back to the board members and going, it is not productive for us to focus on the one negative comment of a 300-person meeting. It's not worth my time. You can do it if you want to. I'm going to focus on the 300 people who got it, not the one who didn't, because they'll never get it in most cases. This counting for my time and realizing where my leakage was during my day has set me free in ways that I can't describe. But it senses your activity. If you say, I'm answering emails right now, and you close your email app, it'll remind you, are you done now? Because you just closed your app and you can go on to the next thing. So it's a little bit of a digital accountability. That led me to email, which was my biggest loss of time and productivity. I became an inbox zero guy. I saw some of you laugh and snicker like you got busted when I said, how many of you have 13,000 unread emails in your Gmail inbox? Okay, I don't have time in this class to do that, but there is a very quick tip, and you can just go to YouTube and find it and just say, select all as read. In your Gmail, you can take the whole thing and start today from stage 1. I was being governed by email, and it became my biggest stressor because I felt like every email in the inbox was a task that had to be performed, something that had to be answered, something that had to be done for someone else. And God forbid, I don't know about you, but when people would send something and say it's a priority, that little red exclamation point, it absolutely irritated the crap out of me, because basically what they're saying, so let's say that I send Anne-Marie an email and I click, this is a priority. I put the little red exclamation. What I'm saying is, Anne, I don't care what you think is important. This is what I'm telling you is important. That little exclamation point absolutely was destroying me, to the point where my staff got an email. Actually, I didn't do an email. I did it in a meeting, and I said, do not ever use an exclamation point when you're sending an email, because I will purposely, because I'm petty like this, I will respond to open house emails before I respond to your email if you make them an exclamation point, because I set my priorities. No one is going to set my priorities for me except for me and my boss and, well, my wife. I can't fight that. Some people ask me how we've been married for 28 years is because I only pretend to be the boss see, here's my wife's plan. If she doesn't agree with something that I'm going to do, she'll just say, well, you have to answer to God for that. That's the boss, right? Because if anybody tells you that, you know that they think it's a stupid idea. So she's still the boss, even when she doesn't act like it. Anyway, so my inbox became a monster, and it was 38% of my time. I'm now down to 12% of my time. That's much more manageable to me. And here's what I did. 1, I unsubscribed from everything. And I write rules for everything else and filters. So in other words, if I unsubscribe often, if I'm getting emails that I do not care about, I unsubscribe from them. If somebody's sending me a newsletter I don't need, I unsubscribe. If somebody is sending me broker opens or open houses, I unsubscribe. Then I got to the point where I was creating filters. And so in every email account, it'll do this. If I saw the word open house or phrase broker open, it immediately went to trash. It didn't even get to my inbox. I'll never see it, because I love you guys, but I don't give a crap about your broker opens and open houses unless you have Chick-fil-A. If you have Chick-fil-A, I will show up for your broker open. Now, I'm only there to recruit you, mind you, but I will show up for your broker open for some Chick-fil-A. I love when people are like, I'm going to be making a homemade such and such. Oh, it's 50-50 that's garbage food that your spouse has been telling you is really good, and now you're making it for everybody, and I got to act like I like it, and I don't. It's not worth the trip. Chick-fil-A, that's Jesus chicken. I will be there. Now, the reality is that creating filters worked on so many levels, and unsubscribe worked on so many levels. There are associations within associations with associations of NAR. There's every little club and group. Like I love you guys, but I don't need a Women Council Realtor email. I'm not going to join. I don't need to join. I'm not your target audience. I'm going to unsubscribe for that, because it's one more thing trying to grab my attention. Now, if you are a WCR person, y'all do great work, but I'm not your target audience. Go do great work with your target audience. And so I'm going to unsubscribe for those things. Agents sending me their flyers or brochures, brokers sending me their recruiting stuff, I just unsubscribe or create a filter and send it to trash. I have a Monday box, as I mentioned. And so if you have a Monday box, anything that comes in Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday that doesn't need immediate attention, I drag and drop over to Monday. And so Monday morning, I go and answer all those emails. I've structured a time because those did not require immediate responses. It cleared my inbox. I wasn't as stressed out. Everybody has a subfolder. Every client, it takes 2 seconds to create a subfolder on every email account. And every email, when I'm done with the client, I move it to the subfolder. Now, this is important for a long run. At the end of every transaction, I simply go click the subfolder in email. I right click on it and I click on print to PDF, and I create one PDF with every email exchange we had related to that transaction. I upload it into my paperless system, and I delete the subfolder. I've got a record of it now. I've got it for court record. I got it for whatever. I don't need any more clutter or junk in my box. It has a huge impact on your little brains. When I was going through this, I felt like I could only handle so much. When I started clearing out unnecessary clutter from my inbox, my little brain just all of a sudden felt freer, like I could breathe when I looked in there. It is such a massive change in my mental health. Same with text messages and all the rest. I don't do this, but I have a friend who does this. And the text message, when the text thread is done and he's completed the conversation, he deletes the text message. So when you go into iMessage or any text message thing, he doesn't even have text messages unless they're current and active. So you don't have the string of every message you ever sent. I couldn't do that. Text messages are live conversations for me. So Darcy, I'm not sure which part you want me to explain. So I think it's the subfolder part. Yeah. So in my email folder, and I don't show you my emails because I have a lot of confidential stuff. And if I open up my email, there's a good chance there's something from staff or agents or whatever. But in your email folder, in most of your emails, if you're using Outlook or Gmail, pretty much an email client. If you don't know, email me after the class. I'll put my email in here and you can email me and I will do what I can to help you find it. In your emails, you can go and you put everything in a folder. So you take it out of your inbox, you drag it over to your little subfolder, usually on the left-hand side of your email. At the end of the transaction, after closing, everything's done. I go to that subfolder, I select all the emails, I right-click to print as PDF, and I create a PDF of all those emails and save it in, we use DocuSign Transaction Room, like .loop or SkySlope or whatever, as part of the transaction record, and I delete the folder. That way I don't have all that. The emails are still deleted, but the folder is gone. So I can only focus on what's active and important in my life, and everything else is backed up. My email address. And then just my webpage. You need to get a hold of me after class, you can. It's not CCOM, whatever that is. It's just .com. Anyways, in inbox then, as I started these very easy practices, these habits, inbox became a triage center. In other words, if it came into my inbox, I needed to do something with it. I needed to either respond to it, move it to a folder, delete it, unsubscribe to it. And the getting things done task I talked about earlier was applied to my email box. And now I was able to move those things. If it's a task that needs to be done, I go add it to the to-do list. I'm not going to leave it in the inbox and use that as the to-do list because it gets too cluttered and you forget and miss things that way. And some of you are hyperventilating right now going, oh my God, I got to delete all those emails. What if I need them? They're in your delete folder. You can search for them later. They just got out of the triage box. Now, again, for those who ever worked in emergency services, fire, rescue, police, whatever, we had this common phrase, and it actually started to circulate after the, just forgot about it, the something bombing. The federal building that was bombed. Anyways, what happened in that disaster scene is they picked up patients from the bombing because we hadn't had too many domestic terrorist attacks before then. They drove them to the hospital. They dumped them in front of the hospital. They ran back. They got another person who was in Oklahoma. Thank you, Amy. For the Oklahoma City bombing, the paramedics and EMTs, fire rescue, everybody just dropped them. And what they did is they relocated the disaster at the hospital. That's what you're doing with your email box. You're just relocating the disaster. Instead of managing it and going, is this a priority? Let's do priorities first. And in that case, in Oklahoma City bombing, there were some people who were critically injured who did not get transported because they were not triaging at the scene. Taking the hospital or taking lesser injuries to the hospital and not getting the service. This is what you're doing with your inbox when you're not using triaging. You're answering the email that's easy instead of the one that's most important, because you just want to get through your emails, or you forget something, or they get lost in that mess of emails there. Your inbox is not intended to be a task management. It's intended to be a message box. Then you move it to a task that can be done later. If it can be done later, if it's less than 2 minutes, then answer it. And oftentimes, if I don't have all the answers, I don't come back and go, let me see if I can answer this. What do you think? I intend for my emails to be the solution and the end of the email chain. That's the point. And then we start a new email so I can manage it later. I also use email templates. Now I save a lot of these in notes. I use Evernote and Apple Notes. I've switched 100% to Apple Notes for the latest version of it because it's powerful as anything. But I used Evernote back when I was a PC user 15 years ago, I guess I started using it until recently. And I save everything in there. So my emails, when it's a new client introduction, I have an email, and some of you have seen this in other classes that I've taught, that has all the answers and everything to set up the meeting. And so I'll show you real quick. You'll see here, like, thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I'd like to confirm we're meeting at your home, around, or located at, and the address, on the time and date. I know you've been busy putting things together. And then it's all this stuff. Here's a video of me so you get to know me before I show up. Here is a checkoff list of things to get ready for the house when you're going on the market. Here's an example of my past marketing. Here's some mobile apps to help you. Here's some information I need from you. When I meet with a buyer, here's my brochure about who I am. Here's an introductory video about me. Here's the buyer onboarding checklist, so I get to know more about you. When we get ratified, dear seller, we're ratified. Congratulations. Here's the settlement company. Here's the buyer's name. Here's the contact information. Here's the closing date. And here's what you need to know. Here's what's going to happen next now that we're ratified. And I save those templates for every single stage of the transaction because most of you know you're sending the same email every single time. You're just freehanding it and you forget things. If you create a template for that you can embed or copy paste or add, then you get to tweak it as you go along to make it better every time, so that you're sending out the best version every time and not just sitting down and stressing out and going, man, it's 12:30 at night. I'm so tired, but I've got to let the Smiths know that now that we're ratified, what's going to happen next? Well, think about the stress you relieve yourself if you just copy and paste one of those email templates for each stage and send it off to them. And actually, I don't want you to misunderstand. So let me do this. I'm going to go to training shareables here. I'm going to share with you some samples of that in the chat. And you're free to rip them off if you want to, or make them your own. But in the chat, I uploaded 2 PDFs that are samples of those emails. So I have a whole library of these. Matter of fact, it's about 34 of these emails because there's different variations. There's setting up the first appointment if it's by Zoom as opposed to in person, et cetera. And I just use them to copy and paste. I edit them and tweak them enough to be personal, but I don't miss anything. I don't have to stress about responding to these things. It sets the tone for everything else. And one of the biggest things when I get feedback from my clients is how organized the transaction was and how they never were guessing as to what's next. And I've spent a career building these email templates in this library just for that purpose. A good app, if you are using Gmail or if you're using Office 365 or Outlook, is called Boomerang. It is free, and it does a couple of things to help you manage your email. The first one, you can schedule emails. Not all email clients do this, although they should. So for example, if I'm sitting here at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and I'm answering my client's email, I do not hit send at 10:30, 11 o'clock, because it starts to train them that I am there and available and be responsive to them. And so they respond at 10:45 at night, and they're waiting. They're sitting there looking, going, well, he just emailed me. I know he's sitting there from his email. Instead, I give them the illusion that I start earlier the next morning. And so at 10:30 at night, when I'm answering their email, I will say send as, or send tomorrow morning at 6:11 or 6:12 a.m. So it doesn't seem like it's too scripted. And so they get their emails when they wake up in the morning. And it saves me from having to back and forth the emails late at night or feeling compelled to answer, because I just one more email before I go to bed. And it starts to set barriers for them thinking I'm 24/7, but yet I'm still getting their answer and I can get my work done in peace and not have these emails keep jumping up in front of me. So let's reschedule them. Boomerang also does one more very important thing. It sets a reminder. How many of you, quick raise of the hands, how many of you send an email, but you leave it in your inbox because it's reminding you to check back with them if they don't respond to you? Come on now, guys. So if I'm using Boomerang, which plugs into my Outlook or my Gmail or whatever I'm using, I can set it and say, if I don't get a response from this email in 2 days, send me a reminder. And then I can delete it from the inbox or move it to a subfolder. 2 days later, I'll get an email going, hey, they didn't respond to this email. That's my reminder. That's my trigger to act. That's when I'm going to go respond to them. You can pause your inbox. So if there are times, again, I do this when I used to do it before Focus came about on Apple, but if you're not an Apple person, you can pause the inbox by clicking a button, and no new emails will come through, so you can focus on other work and not be distracted by emails. And then you can unpause it. I don't use that nearly as often as I probably should have, but it's there. The other part of this free app is called Email Tone. This one I needed, because in the process of trying to be succinct and be practical in my responses, I would leave out some of the diplomacy that you should have to make it sound nice. Like I would just go, yes, and then hit send. And I'm not typically that person. So people who actually physically know me, or actually know me and have conversations, were surprised at short answers. The email tone would actually be an indicator to say, hey, this doesn't sound friendly, or this sounds too professional or too business. And it would give me some hints to make it sound softer or nicer, so I would be received better. Some of you need that. I've read some of your emails. Ooh, some of you are rough. All right, MailChimp. If your email marketing is very important, what we do, email newsletters especially are important what we do. MailChimp does a couple things that I love that makes things a lot easier for you in your email campaigns. One, it allows people to sign up. It's, by the way, MailChimp is free for your first 2,500 emails a month. Most of you are not sending out 2,500 e-newsletters. So this is going to be free for you. It gives you a link that you can put in your email so people can subscribe to you. They can put it on your website. You can send it to them. You can subscribe them. If you have a client or customer, you can put them in there. But there's an email newsletter sign up so they can do it on their own. There are templates specific to real estate. So you can design quickly a very nice e-newsletter and send it out. And here's what I really like. If you were writing a blog and you're keeping up with your website, because again, blogging is still an incredibly valuable marketing tool. It gets lots of business created for people who are diligent to do it. You can write your blog post and put on your website, and you set how often. I only send out one newsletter a month. And if I haven't written anything, the newsletter doesn't go out. There's no new content. It just doesn't go. What MailChimp will do is take the article you wrote and put on your blog, pull it into a newsletter, and send it to your clients for you. So you don't have to formulate the newsletter. You don't have to do any extra work to type it. You don't have to copy, paste, and format. It automatically takes the content from your website over the past however long. Again, I do it every 30 days. And then sends out a newsletter automatically. So I'm not creating newsletters every month. I am just posting blog posts, which could be videos or it could be content or whatever, as often as I need to throughout the month. It also has a new feature called client journeys. And this one's a little bit more important to you. It does take a little bit more work, but it's very valuable. So let's say that George emails me and says, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house in New Hampshire. I'm qualified. I'm looking for an investment property, whatever. Then I can create a client journey for investors and say, for the next 6 months, I have an email that goes out every week, every 2 weeks, or whatever it is. And unlike most email campaigns, if I put George in the middle of a campaign, he doesn't get the first 6 emails. He gets whatever's left over. With client journeys, I just click the client journey, and now I have got a 6-month email campaign that I've designed just for George, and he starts at the beginning and it ends at the end. And then it sends me a prompt to say, hey, is he still a client? Is he still interested? I've reached the 27, 30 emails that you have programmed for him over a 6-month client journey. And so I have one for buyers and sellers, investors, whomever it is. I have 4 or 5 different client journeys. And for those of you who are brokers, I have it for recruitment too, whether they're experienced or unlicensed. There's a client journey, and I just go throw them in there, click client journey button, and they're off. A lot of CRMs have something very similar, but MailChimp is free and works great and looks better than most CRM emails. A couple more productivity apps. Those were email ideas and plans. Todoist is my favorite action app. So as I said, I'll take stuff at email, if it's a project I need to do, if it's something that a task has to be done, and I put it in Todoist. And Todoist works with a lot of other programs. There's a lot of to-do type apps out there. You can go crazy trying to find the right one. Just like CRMs, I think find the one that works and stick with it, even if it's not got every bell and whistle, because the one you use is the one that's most valuable. But I put action items in there, and some of them are long-term with no due date. And so I just put them in there and say, okay, I got to write this class. It's something I want to do one day. I got to create this video. It's something I want to do one day. Then I got other things that have to be done today. Like the highlight today was calling the vet and scheduling Jet for his shots. That goes in there today. I can do reoccurring. On the 15th of every month, I give Jet his medication. Every Monday, I water all my plants. The first of the month, I check on the health of the agents in my office. I have a few of them that are older. So I have specific agents that I check with at various times throughout the month. This is my brain. Remember, I said earlier, your brain's for having ideas. The technology is for remembering them and doing them. And so these different tasks are set up, and you can control when they come up. Again, reoccurring tasks are there and all the rest. So I have one for the first of every month that reminds me to send out my newsletter. Now it's automated, so I don't worry about it, but I still want to look over and make sure it's okay. I've got one that reminds me when to send out anniversary cards for people, like every year. Everything's on there for reminders, and it's very, very, very easy to use, and it syncs with everything. So if I'm on the web page or my desktop or my iPhone or my iPad or Android device or whatever you're using, it syncs. And they had lots of what's called APIs, which means other third-party softwares like your CRM may have a tie-in to Todoist, so that you're only putting stuff in one place and it affects the other systems that you have. And it's just a really slick looking system. It's very, very intuitive. So it's very intuitive. I can go in there and say, call Amber the third Thursday of every month to check in on coaching. And I just type in a very simple common sentence to tell what to do. And it goes and sets it on my calendar and sets it all up. I don't have to click a bunch of buttons and stuff. I can just type in on the 15th of every month, give Jed his medication. And it sets it all up for me and sends me a notification. It also ties into my Gmail calendar. So at the top of every day, it's got those to-do items as they're scheduled. Your website is your partner here. Agents are not using their websites nearly as effectively as they could. This is where I'm going to host introduction emails. This is where I'm going to host forms for new buyer onboarding, new seller onboarding. This is going to be an entry point to go into my CMAs if they fill out forms. If somebody says, how's the market going? I'm going to send them a link to the website I have with all the market statistics, a video explanation, an updated RPR report, and everything else. If somebody says in my market, I'll share a link in the chat here. If somebody says, hey, does anybody know a good restaurant? I want to take my families to that restaurant. I have created a map, and there are videos on my website about how I did this. Actually, I'm going to share this screen. I know I have a couple minutes, but so on my website, I have a community page. And when you scroll down, I have a Google map that took me no time to set up, where I have my favorite restaurants, my favorite parks, my favorite outdoor entertainment, because during COVID, I got rid of all indoor entertainment. This is the wrong one. On the other map that I've not updated yet, I don't have any indoor entertainment there, but I've got historical sites in our area, hiking trails, biking trails, and some other little things. And this is all customized using Google Maps for free, embedded on my website. So when somebody says, hey, I'm looking for something to do with my family this weekend, I can go on social media or wherever. I can simply go to that link and share that there. And now I am not saying, oh, here's 3 good restaurants I like, and I'm getting links, I'm writing names. I just share that link every time, which takes them from the question they asked on Facebook to my website, where they can also see I have all the service providers they need. Now, my service providers are not well and septic and attorneys. Those are people there too. It's vets, it's your lawn care people, it's any lifestyle thing you would need. So when someone says, does anyone have a good recommendation for a landscaper? Yes, I do. Because as a real estate agent, I should have all those people. This is another way I add value, whether they're actively thinking about buying or selling or not. This page, a community guide, service providers, the map for things to do, blog post about ballparks and how cool the library is and my favorite hiking trails, then leads them to sign up for the newsletter, which is a MailChimp, which is all automated. Does anybody see where I'm going here? Like, I have automated this process so that when somebody asks a question, it becomes not only an automated lead generation opportunity, I don't have to think twice about what I'm sharing and getting together the information I should already have available there. All this stuff is, your website cannot just be an advertisement page in 2021. It's a content management system, a CMS. So all these tools and resources I have set up on there are so that I don't have to put extra work. It makes me easy to answer the question. Because if you're in a hurry throughout the day and you're scrolling through Facebook sitting at the doctor's office, and a friend on Facebook says, can anybody recommend a good restaurant to take my in-laws to? You want to say, oh, here's 3 good restaurants, but you don't have time to do that. If you've already pre-done the work, anticipating what their needs are and having a link there, you can share the link to that answer. It happens more fluently, so you actually do it because you've done all the work in the beginning, and then it creates lead generation. Your CRM, and I know everybody, every time I bring up CRM, everybody's like, well, what's the best one out there? Whatever one you're using. It doesn't matter to me if you are using Top Producer, even though that's not my favorite, or you're using Follow Up Boss and paying a lot of money. None of them are any good if you don't put the work into them and actually letting them be that brain. This is your assistant. When I told you earlier about virtual assistants and all the rest, your CRM that's well managed and you put the work into in the beginning handles this stuff for you. It reminds you to call people about their anniversaries and birthdays. But let me just say this. CRMs, when properly executed, do way more. Let me just give you a hint on this. Because, again, I want to manage my time well, I want to find what's important. I don't necessarily like going to Facebook and going, happy birthday, Jim, because there's 350 other people who said happy birthday to Jim on Facebook. He doesn't even know most of them, right? How many of you have had a birthday and you're like, who the hell is this wishing me happy birthday? Or they just put HBD for happy birthday. Look, if you are too lazy to write out the word, save it. If you can only write 3 letters, that's horrible. But if I am on Facebook and I see that Amy just adopted a puppy today, and it's September 23rd, she adopted Rover, I'm going to go to my CRM and I'm going to put puppy adoption day, Rover is the name. That's a horrible dog name, by the way. Be more original than that. And I'm going to tell it a prompt that every year at this time, whether it's her kid graduated from college or high school or dog adoption or a new car even, I'm going to put those anniversaries in there because no one else is remembering or saying anything about that. And now I can send a text message or an email or a phone call going, hey, Amy, you know what? I bet you Rover is huge now. It's been a year. Those golden retrievers are beautiful dogs. Those mastiffs, whatever they are awesome. Or I could send her a gift card to Chewy or whatever it is if she's someone on my warm list for my CRM. The CRM helps you remember things. It helps you keep you on task, but you've got to use it, create the follow-ups and follow them. They do work and they work very, very well. Another good app is Scanner Pro. There's a bunch of Scanner, whatever works for you. Scanner Pro works for me and it does a couple things well. If someone brings me a piece of paper or sends me a form or my client signed it or whatever, I can use the camera on my phone. And I know that Apple has launched a new scanner. It doesn't do quite as much as Scanner Pro. Scanner Pro will create a JPEG or a PDF out of those documents. So how many of you have asked clients for blueprints to their listing? So you want to put blueprints in your marketing materials, and they bring out these tattered, rolled up blueprints from 20 years ago when they built the house. Instead of taking those to Kinko and getting them reduced or trying to reproduce them somehow, you can roll them out on the floor, take a picture with Scanner Pro. It'll create a beautiful 8x11 PDF. It'll take out the tattered edges. It'll take out the coffee stains on them and all the rest, make a very beautiful single level PDF, reducing it to something that's manageable, and it does it in seconds. And now you've got a digital version of those assets. You can hand the blueprints back to your clients and walk out the door and have everything you need. When they have, closing documents, whatever forms you needed from them or documents you needed to help process things, legal forms, a power of attorney that they had, they don't have a copy at their house. You could just take a scanner and do it. I use it for everything. Receipts, everything. Business receipts get scanned in there, and then I just process it from the scanner. LastPass is another one, and I know a lot of you have written down your passwords underneath your keyboard on your computer, or you have a little notebook you carry in your pocket. LastPass helps save you a great deal of time, and it can be Dashlane or LastPass, whatever you use. This is my favorite one right now. There's a free version that does a little bit, and there's a paid version that does everything. But if I am, the MLS says you need another, and passwords are getting more complex. Like recently, DMV in Virginia required a new password. It had to be 15 letters and a mixture of symbols, capitalizations, and numbers. You know what I'll just tell you what my password is. It's a variation of this, but it says Virginia DMV sucks so hard. And then I've got a whole bunch of variations of different characters and letters and stuff in there. You guys can play with that all day and see if you want to log in. I'm +5 on my driving points, and I have a really clean record, and it's awesome. So you're not going to find anything in there if you get in there. But there's no way I'm going to remember that a year from now when I go in to renew my license. saving it on LastPass, which by the way, if you set it up, does it automatically when it senses you've changed a password. It automatically pre-fills when you change a password. All of my cards from my wallet are in here. If I lose my wallet, every credit card, the phone number, and all the rest is in here. And there's one password I have to remember now that's complicated. If you get to that, by the way, if you figure out the password for my LastPass, you deserve to rob me. You've earned it, because it's not easy. But it's one password for everything now instead of a different password for each thing. And as real estate agents, we have a ton of passwords that not only do we have to memorize, we have to change them every 6 months to a year. So this app keeps track of all that, but it also keeps track of other confidential information, notes, and all the rest. And it's encrypted with the same security that they use at the bank software apps. So it'll definitely help streamline your day, and you won't get stuck not remembering your password and doing resets and getting frustrated. Trello is another management board. I've got a video for this. If you want it, you can go find it on my YouTube page on how agents can use this. Trello is a project management board. Every one of my listings has this. There is a project board for pre-listing, a project board for after the listing agreement is signed, a project board for after ratification. Every step is there. If you have an assistant, or if you have things for your clients to do, which I do, on these templates, I can assign them and I can keep track of everything in there. It's absolutely free. It ties into a lot of other products you may be using. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And then, as I said, note-taking apps. Your brain is for having ideas. You need a place to dump them. If you're not sleeping at night, have a notepad and a pencil next to your bed. I don't try to touch my digital devices when I'm trying to sleep, but have the notepad and pencil so you can quickly write down that great idea. And then I put it in notes. I take notes at every meeting, even for things I think I might remember. If you're an Apple user, the new Apple Notes is the most powerful thing out there. I have been a note app connoisseur for a long time. I've switched almost every one of them, tested them out. It's just nothing like it. Evernote is the next best thing. Apple Notes is free for Apple users. Evernote does come with a small price tag on there, but everything I need to know on there, every signature I need to remember, all my email templates, just everything is on there. So I can quickly recall it, use it, copy it, paste it, edit it, whatever's going on there is there, personal and business. It also does document management. So I have transactions where I could just add a PDF to it. I can add a link to something. I can make notes. Every transaction has a note, an Evernote or an Apple Notes. And I've got a little chart. And so every phone call, every email, everything that's notable, not just routine checking in stuff, but everything that's notable, I have timeline on there. So yeah, Apple Notes is great. And if you have updated to iOS 15, or when you upgrade to Monterey, the new operating system, it's just a whole different platform. It's awesome. Evernote is, again, a fantastic tool if you're looking for something. But every class I'm taking, all the stuff we're talking about today, you can be taking notes in this, and so you can come back to it later. The one thing I will say is I do not use the note-taking apps or a digital device when I'm with clients, because they think you're texting your mom and dad or something when you're on here typing away. If you are going to use a tablet, whether you're using the Android tablet or an iPad, use the pencils that go along with it so you're writing on it, so they don't think that you're typing and texting. If you're using the pencil, they seem to think that you're still engaged in taking notes about their transactions. But again, everything I do is in a note somewhere. If you are looking for a free, really great management system, ClickUp is the absolute bomb right now. It's a productivity suite. Everything I've talked about today, plus more, is wrapped up in one free tool. If you are a team or you have an assistant, you can add them. There is a cost for teams, but it's free for you. You can do productivity management for your listings and buyers and all your clients, for any projects you're working on. All the stuff we've talked about, all these other apps can be done in one place, plus more, and you can upload all your PDFs and contracts into that, and it syncs to all your devices so you can pull up stuff. Again, I'm introducing you to these topics so you can spend time, because you've time block time now, right, for personal development, to go look at these things. This is definitely one that today you should stop and go look at and go, can I incorporate this in my business? It's very, very simple to use. It's very free, and just a big, big fan. Also, as I'm wrapping up, Zip Forms has some great features. I have a video on my YouTube channel about how to use it. So setting up task lists with time-sensitive dates, responsive task lists. It's very powerful if you are using Zip Forms. You've got to go look at checklists, templates, and tasks. Again, I have a video on YouTube for it, and you can email me if you can't find it. And it just takes you through how to do all these things and keep your transactions on task. It's really, really good. Marketing, Canva. Keep your marketing assets in there. You can quickly create things as they come to you on Canva. I think everybody's familiar with Canva. Hootsuite lets you manage all of your social media on one platform. Again, you've probably heard this. This tool's been around for a decade now. It is worth looking at and scheduling your marketing and scheduling your tasks. Cloud CMA or MoxieWorks, have templates saved. If you're not using Cloud CMA or MoxieWorks, go to Canva. Canva has a whole real estate section where you can create listing presentations, buyer presentations, brochures, templates, and it's all part of the free Canva. Although I think just like Zoom, you should just pay for the Canva thing because the upgraded stuff is fantastic. By the way, I will be launching a free workshop. It'll be an 8-part workshop on my YouTube page about Canva that should be launched before the end of the year, where I'm taking just for real estate agents through all the ins and outs of it. It's one of my favorite tools. Book recommendations, I mentioned this one. Atomic Habits. If you only read one business book this year, Atomic Habits has got to be this book. James Clear it's transformative. I know that sounds like an Oprah word, but it truly absolutely changes how I did everything. I'm reading it for the 3rd time this year because I take away something each time, but it's all about making small changes to get us to our ultimate goals and to make it more manageable to become better productivity people and just better in life in general. And then I mentioned Getting Things Done by David Allen, also fantastic. The one caution I will give you, David Allen is an old soul. He's not going to give you a whole bunch of tech or tools or technology things. He'll mention 1 or 2. He's much more analog, but his systems and his concepts are powerful and can be used with all of your tech stuff. And then lastly, breathe. It's 90 minutes of an 8-hour class, what should be. There's a lot of tools. Do not try to implement them all this weekend. Start small. Take the concepts I discussed at the beginning. We recorded this session. My guess is it'll be available to you to go back and watch. You take notes. You have the book. Take one thing at a time, get to know it well, and then add things as you go along. Most of you have very long careers ahead of you. Some of you are like, I don't want to do this anymore. But a lot of you long careers, this was something that's taken me 2 years to summarize for you in 90 minutes and get those concepts and tools and tricks in place. Start with the things that is your biggest need, whether it's taking notes or whether it's sleeping. And take whatever you got out of today to practice those better. My name is Matthew Rathbun. I really appreciate the time you spent with me over this time. Sorry, I went 3 minutes over. My contact information, you can go to MatthewRathbun.com and find all of my stuff. Please follow me on social. I do share a lot of stuff and I do it for free. You can sign up for my newsletters. I only do once a month. I'm not asking you to buy anything. There's no money required. And I do send out my tips and tricks and all the stuff we talk about here. I have a whole video series coming out on, but breaking each tool down. So if you do sign up, you will see that in the future dates. Biggest thing is I love my YouTube channel. That's where I'm putting all my focus in the future. So if you want more stuff, that's where you go. Thank you guys. Thank you for all your time. I have time to stick around for more questions. I know the rest of you need to go because we only budgeted for till 11:30. But I'm happy to stand around here for a bit. Okay, so I got a good question. This one is in the direct message, so I won't say your name. I'm a brand new sales agent. I'm curious about your calendar. Is that a typical broker's calendar? Had it in my head that if you are in real estate, that you will be working on weekends. Your weekends are free. Is my expectation to be working weekends off? Okay, that's a great question. Now, let me just say this. Since my first year in the business, I would not work client appointments on Sunday. That was me personally. I had a very strong opinion about the necessity for a Sabbath, and that day I was very, very involved in our church and leadership team. Later on, I became more flexible on my Sundays, but I still didn't meet clients. I did everything either virtually or by email or phone, but I was physically with my family as much as I could. So Sundays have always been kind of a sacred day for me, even though I would be taking phone calls and emails and virtual meetings, even a decade before it was cool. I always took those off. Saturdays, I do appointments. That particular screenshot you saw did not have Saturday appointments, but I do take client appointments on Saturdays. It just didn't happen to have any of the week that I did that screenshot. There was one other appointment on there that was a client, but I removed it for the screenshot because I don't want my client name to broadcast on training and classes everywhere else. So your thoughts are not unreasonable, but you still structure time. So my biggest advice to rookie agents or new agents is say 11 to 4 on Saturdays is your showing time that you block off for make available for clients. You need some time for family in the morning and in the evenings to do the best you can to balance that. Do not sacrifice your families for real estate. It's not worth it. I've seen too many good agents burn out and get pulled out of the industry because their family, was upset with them or they were trying to budget it all. The next question, could you detail which client journeys you have mapped in MailChimp and how does that coordinate with Trello template flows? They are two different things. The Trello, again, on my YouTube channel, just go to my YouTube channel. There's a link on my website. Search for Trello on that channel and you'll find the tutorial on how I use Trello for real estate. MailChimp, you need to go to general Google and do a search on it. I have not set this up for clients. I have one for recruiting right now because my clients, their journey is actually in my CRM. And I use MoxieWorks for my CRM, by the way. So MailChimp is a great option. It's fairly new to MailChimp, which is why I have not set up for clients. I may be switching over to that eventually. That way I'm not tied to a specific CRM. All right, guys, you guys enjoy the beautiful New Hampshire area in autumn. It's awesome up there. I appreciate you attending. See y'all later.